in every single moment, we have a choice. The Buddha said that in every moment there are 3,000 possibilities. And so often what actually happens in the moment is that we recreate the same patterns and the same loops and the same scripts and the same distresses. Not always the distresses, of course. Sometimes there's patterns and programs running that are sustaining and helpful, but awareness is the key to recognize the choices, recognize the moment, and recognize that there is this gap between any stimulation, anything that happens, any situation, any conversation, anything we see, anything that rises up in our body, any memory. There is a gap from that stimulation to when we respond or how we respond. And that is the space where the 3,000 possibilities are, in that gap between stimulus and response. And it's incredibly empowering to take ownership of that choice and to start to work to be aware of that gap and aware of that space, because so often our responses come out of old patterns, old scripts, habitual ways of being and speaking and saying and responding, and then what we do is just keep repeating the same old. And really and truly, that's where investigating our paradigm, and investigating, by that I mean our map of how we've come to make up the beliefs we have, or how they've become to be something we believe to be something personal to us, how we've got our opinions and our responses, which are often adaptations to childhood events. So that's why an exploration of the paradigm that we are carrying unconsciously often is really useful to help with recognizing that gap, because then the past then becomes what it really only is, something to inform us, and the future, which obviously at the moment is an illusion, we'll actually step into it consciously if we really become mindful of this space, the space between stimulus and response. Because so often, particularly in a reactive situation where it's quite heated or emotive, the reaction comes up in the body and then it's out. And then if the reaction happens and we respond to somebody with frustration, irritation, anything that's habitual and familiar, then we reenact the past again and again and again and again, maybe with different people, maybe different scenarios, different settings, but it is actually the same. Whereas if we get aware, we become aware of our paradigm, aware of our tendencies, and we start to really investigate that space. When we feel something rising up in the body, a feeling of irritation or upset or whatever it might be, rather than the habitual thing of acting out of it, we'll get better and better at pressing a pause button and knowing that then we can really witness the space, experience the space, not just act out of that impulse. And once we start doing that, what can happen is a huge empowerment and a massive change. Now, of course, the other contradiction is that sometimes people don't really want change, not really, not truly. So again, that's where reflection's important, to be prepared for change and be prepared for something different and something new to happen. And of course, the more we practice this and this space that opens up between any stimulus and our response, suddenly the whole universe, the whole world and everything in it is our playground, and anything can happen. So sometimes that can be a place of discomfort for people, whereas actually the freedom that space gives means that we can transform, we can experience new things, we can heal our relationships, we can heal ourselves, and all it takes is firstly a recognition that there is some space between the stimulus and a response. That's the first step. Acknowledge there is space, even if you can't find it initially, even if there seems to be nothing, there seems to be an immediate action response, reactivity, whatever happens. But first acknowledge there is a space. There's this huge space, and that can be practiced by easy things, where you're going to make a habitual morning cup of tea or coffee, but create space between your decision to make the coffee and the mug you choose. Really consciously choose it, because if we practice with easy things, or what you're going to eat, or what you're going to put on your body, what clothes you're going to wear, really witness the gap in those places. Because if you start practicing with easy things, it's the same with everything. Practicing a new technique, we do it slowly. We're practicing a move in a skill in a martial arts or any skill. We'll practice it slowly to learn it. So to practice finding the gap between stimulus and response, practice with things that are easy and aren't emotive. As I say, choices of food, choices of clothes, choices of what mug you're going to use for your drink, everything. Just slow everything down, and then you'll experience the moment more. You'll experience that space. You'll experience that there is huge space between, well, there's huge space between everything. There's space between thoughts, there's space between words, there's space in everything that we are doing, thinking, feeling. So look for the space and start to experiment with really, really pressing that pause button and consciously choosing the response you have to any situation, person, conversation, situation, the weather, everything. Choose your response.